Alrighty gamers, here's the biggest video I've ever made. I listened to 152 albums released in 2023. Google tells me there are on average between like 9 to 12 songs per album, and given that I actually just refuse to count the number of songs in all of those albums, we're going to assume this is how many new songs I listened to this year. And then we're going to talk about the 20 best ones, the top 1.25% of the year. Sorry for all the numbers guys, but statistics make me feel fuzzy inside. This video will be a pretty traditional countdown, this part going from 20 to 11, and part 2, whenever it comes out, will go from number 10 to number 1. I did set the rule of only having one song per artist, partly because I needed some structure to stop me actually going insane, but also partially to spice things up so Sufjan Stevens wouldn't take up like 8 spots on the list. Alright, let's get into it. You know, I feel like starting off this list with something that is frankly embarrassing is a bad idea. You want to save your hot takes for further into the list so that people don't decide your takes are like garbage immediately, but I don't know what to tell you. The issue with that mentality is that I love this song way too much to remove it from this list, but I can't reasonably justify putting it over the songs above it, and that's why this video starts with a 100 gecs song. I know. This is an absolutely wild pick to have just like straight up in the video. It's like telling you that Limp Bizkit are my favorite metal band from the 2000s. And if I was really that desperate to have this sort of artist on here, why couldn't I have like Hemlock Springs or something make the list instead? The reason for that is that A, the 100 gecs album was legitimately my most listened to project this year. Sorry Hemlock, I love you too. And B, Billy Knows Jamie goes so unfathomably hard that it pained me to even mention Limp Bizkit in this section. Seriously, this song is a crazy, new metal, death metal combination that absolutely chokeslammed me the first time I heard it. The delivery is what really sells it. Dylan Brady gives a banger hook. And Laura's verse contains some absolutely brutal lines. This entire Jamie's gonna make your ass one with the earth section is just straight fire. And then we have like this mini bridge where Laura assures the listener that Jamie's a totally chill guy before slamming into these guttural screams and riffs that are so distorted they're clipping. Just an absolutely insane outro that would not feel out of place on an actual death metal project, not a weird pop-punk, hyper-pop fusion like this. It's just such a clever tune with so many excellent little touches. The talkbox effects during the bridge, the record scratches to open the track, the wild distortion on the back half. Screw being a novelty, this is a legitimately excellent and creative production that is impossible to hate. A lot of 100 gecs songs have a like sitcom-esque quality to them where the comedic value cuts the story off before it gets too heavy, and I love a lot of 100 gecs songs for this reason. Doritos and Fritos would have taken this spot had it not been released last year, and Frog on the Floor is still an absolute pleasure. But Billy Knows Jamie is the first time that I've heard them create this story and absolutely commit to the atmosphere behind it. They've said before that they're not particularly interested in making the 100 gecs name more serious than it already isn't, but Billy Knows Jamie is the perfect showcase of the fact that they can totally make this work. A mind-melding track from two of the most exciting artists of 2023, how could I not fall in love with this one? I love ranking things. I rank things for fun in my head all the time. I don't think I've ever thought about ranking my least favorite insects, but I can tell you straight up that number 1 is the fucking mosquito. The blood-sucking assholes came straight from hell and will never stop haunting my waking hours. Oh, and also they've got a huge kill count, I suppose. Anyway, insect mosquito, bad. But songs named mosquito, good. Okay, so I know this is cheating, and I do have a specific pick, but I just really wanted to bring up the fact that there were 2 Song of the Year contenders called Mosquito, and they literally could not sound more different from one another. And yet I love them almost equally. Still, after much deliberation, I think I prefer Pink Pantheress's Mosquito.
On a Monday, can I see you?
It's just a gorgeous track that I latched onto instantly. And Pink Pantheress has been a pretty significant face in popular music this year. Boys a Liar Part 2 peaking at number 3 on the charts is a huge achievement, regardless of how obsolete Billboard may or may not be becoming. But even then, Mosquito feels like it's such a huge moment in her career. Lead single for her debut full-length project, and she fucking nailed it. For what it's worth, I think the album is deserving of a lot of praise as well. It's got some missteps, but fundamentally Pink Pantheress is at her best when she's at her cutest, and the songs here are almost pristine in their cuteness. And to bring it back to Mosquito, it's probably the best example of that. A pretty simple story where she dreams of fame and fortune, only to have it not be all it's cracked up to be, and instead, it's her relationship with her partner that's the important thing. Or maybe not. I don't actually know. I mean, read that chorus. Surface level, it reads as an expression of her pure love for this hypothetical, and maybe it really is that. Alternatively, when put into context of a song about her habitual attachments to material possessions and money, and I don't know, it just ends up reading super dark to me, a glorified depiction of addiction that could be a minor glimpse into her actual life. Or again, maybe not. Honestly, whichever interpretation you read it with, I still think it works. Either the beautiful drum and bass sounds sugary and sweet, or it's got a dark undertone that really grips the listener. The main thing is, it's beautiful, the guitar still rips, and Mosquito is still one of the best songs of the year.
These days I wear my body like an uninvited guest. I turn it right and right and right instead of turning left.
My favourite album of last year was Quedeca's I Didn't Mean to Haunt You. Fundamentally, it was just such an incredible left turn for him that it instantly left an impression on me, and the more time I spent with it, the more I understood how fantastic it really was. Going into 2023, suffice to say that I wasn't expecting an even bigger left turn to come within the first month of the year. I think that a good left turn needs to get you wondering why it was ever a left turn in the first place. If you'd asked me before this year about putting Lil Yachty's voice over these psych rock instrumentals, I might have actually laughed in your face, but now that it's out into the world, it's hard for me to remember that Yachty ever did anything else. And trust me, his old material is perfectly memorable in all the wrong ways.
All my bitches come in pairs like balls in my nutsack.
But Yachty says the plan was always to switch it up, that he'd always been influenced by artists like Pink Floyd, James Brown, Tame Impala, but he came into the music industry as a young kid starting the revolution of hip-hop and just kind of rode the wave into the mainstream. And in 2023, he'd had enough. Enough of the virality. He wanted to make something he really believed in, so he brought in live orchestral instrumentation, got advice from dozens of peers, fought tooth and nail to keep his creative vision, and collaborated with the likes of MGMT, Mac DeMarco, and Magdalena Bay, all to make what is comfortably his best project.
I'm feeling D, riding on E, a shopping spree may feel the V, V as in void.
The Ride was the song that really stuck with me throughout the year, most likely because it is the most successful on the album with a pretty traditional pop chorus structure, but it's important not to ignore Yachty's vocal contributions, which are about as weird as it's possible to get. His auto-crooning hooks and switch-ups into lower registers during the verses are like nothing I can ever remember hearing before, and yet I wonder exactly why I've never heard it, since it works so flawlessly. And he's succeeded in more ways than one, since this really does feel like one of his most honest tracks. The lyricism is not mind-blowing or completely original, but when he talks about his anxieties in this way, I'm inclined to believe him. And when it's this catchy and I'm singing along to every single word in this chorus, it just finds its way to worm its way in and scratch an inch in my brain. I don't know whether Yachty is going to stick with psych rock or return full-time to hip-hop, but either way, I'm sure he'll fucking nail it.
But boy, your patience is a magic kind of medicine. 'Cause every spiral brings me back into your arms again.
You know, if I wasn't so lazy, I probably would have already done a video on Music Nerd's treatment of teenagers and young women in music. Like, if you're making criticisms with the perspective of never enjoying something in this lane, why the hell would anything you say have any merit? I don't know, I guess I just don't like the Billie Eilish reception effect. I like Billie a lot though, so it's possible I'm just salty. But unfortunately, despite being a pretty different brand of pop star, Olivia Rodrigo seems to be getting the same response. Not that I think she cares in the slightest, but god damn it, I care, since I might like her stuff even more than Billy's. So, which Olivia Rodrigo song ended up on this list then? Is it the gorgeous #1 hit ballad Vampire? Is it the album cut Get Him Back, which received a hugely positive response upon release? Is it the spiritual successor to Sour's Deja Vu, Making the Bed? Is it the catchy upbeat rocker Love Is Embarrassing, which still hits hard lyrically? Nope. No, I chose the Autism Anthem. You know, I compared Olivia's online reception to Billie Eilish, but that's not really fair. The main reason I disagreed with the Billie Eilish criticism was, well, I just disagreed with it. I think Billie is a talented and creative musician with a lot of great ideas, and it was sad to see all the memes reducing that creativity to nothing. Olivia Rodrigo, on the other hand, okay, I guess it's still kind of similar, and that I'm still just disagreeing. More than anything though, it's the specific comments about inauthenticity or industry plans or whatever that are super weird, since, I mean, I'm around her age, and honestly, you'd be hard pressed to find an album more relatable for me than this one.
Every guy like his day, the morning after a panic. Oh God, what did I say?
And Ballad of a Homeschooled Girl is right at the top of that list, since it basically echoes every sentiment I've ever had about my own social skills to a frankly terrifying degree. And you know, that's mostly pretty specific to me, but fuck it, this is my list and not yours. The writing is just straight up great. Both verses slap. The first talking about feelings of personal isolation and inadequacy around people your own age, while the second deals more with those feelings in a specifically romantic context, not knowing what to do or say, misunderstanding the other person's situation. And like, it's humiliating to be saying this because of how sad it is, but she is like, literally me. It doesn't hurt that the song just goes off as well. It might be the least mainstream track on the whole album, pulling from sounds of garage rock or power pop that you just don't expect from someone of her stature, with a genuine love for and respect for the craft. The dynamics are great, with well-combined up-tempo and down-tempo moments, the writing is stellar, the song is fun. What more could I want? The more I listened to this whole album, the more I ended up loving it, and a significant reason for that is Ballad of a Homeschooled Girl. I guess I'll have to respect the opinions of the people who weren't into this, despite what I said before, but I just kind of feel sad for them. I mean, they're the ones in the haters' corner, sadly missing out on one of the jams of the year.
Said no regrets, 'cause you're my sunset, fiery red, forever fearless.
I've actually gotten IRL, like, fear of birds. I don't know why, really. I think that even though most of them are okay, I'm irrationally terrified of being preyed on from above. Like, I'm taller than most people, so when something's above my typical field of view, my fight or flight response activates. Plus, some of them have really peculiar and aggressive habits, like plovers deciding that open fields and playgrounds are the perfect resting area for their child. Or that old myth about swans breaking your arm, or geese, who are terrifyingly good at making laid-back country rock. Wait, what? Man, talk about an album that everyone just seemed to agree was, yeah, pretty good. I mean, 3D Country isn't a rock album that reinvents the wheel or anything, but it is a project full of life and authenticity and the straight-up life-affirming joy of simply existing. And 2023 on the whole was actually a pretty good year for country and rock, with this album being one of the clear highlights. Cowboy Nudes was my favourite of what was a pretty good bunch on this album. It's a gorgeous track, and another one of those that feels like it's existed for decades already. The guitar line is deceptively simple, the vocals are deep and rootsy, but Cowboy Nudes is remarkably good at piling one great creative decision on top of another. The chorus is one of the best of the year, full stop. The harmonies are excellent, obviously, but there's also something about these lines that is just so sweet and soulful. The chicka chicka chas are so infectious, and on the whole, it's a hook that really makes the song. but I probably wouldn't have placed it on this list at all if not for that mid-song breakdown after the first chorus, because holy shit. A perfect touch of unhinged spice to add to the mixture that really pushes it over the top, with these screened lines that say, yeah, so it took me an embarrassing amount of time to realize that this song is about the climate crisis, or not necessarily about it, but in significant reference to. It's not just that line either, the lyrics about grooving on under the sea, and especially the opening line about wishing the end could have come sooner. Because that really is what the song is about. The world is ending, the apocalypse is nigh, but it's going to be fun as hell afterwards. Not that I think we should be ignoring the climate crisis, but I'd also go insane if every song I heard was so dark and depressing in tone, and I'm glad we've got this one to groove along with. And I don't think the song is about willful ignorance anyway. It's about enjoying life while you can, and that's a sentiment that always manages to strike a chord in me. And that chorus, "Be my warrior, my loving light," is exactly the sort of romantic, sickeningly sweet line that gives me butterflies all over. Cowboy Nudes is an instantly classic groove that anyone should be able to sing along with, and for that alone it deserves all the appreciation in the world. Well, we're about halfway through this half of the list, so I figure it's time to give you a break with 10 honourable mentions that just barely got squeezed off the final list. Starting with...
I'm super shy, but wait a minute while I make you mine.
New Jeans are the best K-pop group I discovered this year. So glad this song became a hit.
You look and catch it, here's a collide. You look and catch it, here's a collide.
Okay, I know my rules are one mention per artist, but come on, have you seen this single cover? Look at it! Jid is the 6th New Jeans member for real.
Is there anyone out there?
Remember how I mentioned Hemlock Springs in the Billy Knows Jamie segment? Yeah, if Girlfriend was released in 2023, it would have knocked it off the bottom spot. But Anyone is pretty great too. Man, this album was overhated. The End is such a fun song, man. Almost makes me actually want to listen to Baby Metal. Almost. Don't talk to me if you don't like Bruiser Wolf's feature on this song.
It's how legends is born.
Rest in peace, man. Considering the current track record of YouTubers making music, Lovejoy continue to be like shockingly good. Excited for whenever the debut LP comes out. Crazy how Connor Mason had his testicles surgically removed in preparation for this song. That's dedication right there. You know, I can't overstate how crazy consistent Queens of the Stone Age have been for the last 25 years. Not everything's a like clockwork, but damn, if you're coming up with shit as good as Scenery in your 50s, you deserve all the plaudits. Kind of a shame there was no room for this one on the main list, considering how much I listened to the album in full. If I was doing an albums list, Struggler would for sure crack the top 15.
Will you be a Satanist with me?
Just haven't really fully bought into Boy Genius. I think their solo stuff is better. The Satanist is a pretty great banger though.
So goodbye,
And in your arms, a warm horizon. Don't look back.
Alright. I'm done with the honourable mentions. Enough talking about songs for little kids. This is the adult section, where we talk about grown-up things like investment banking, embezzlement, fraud, your wife and kids, and superannuation. I mean, if you want to get by in this business, you gotta do it like this. When's the last time you saw someone with a ski mask and a gun get on the inside? I've actually been into underscores for a little while now. The 2021 album Fishmonger is still one of my favourites from that year, an infectious little hyperpop project with hooks for absolute days. It was an album that quickly got me invested in what Underscores would make next. And between the heightened ambition and budget and the hype and praise people were heaping onto her second project, Wallsocket, I was going to be super into it, right? Right?
You don't even know who I am.
Look, it's still clearly a good project that I enjoyed listening to, but it didn't instantly work its way into my brain the way Fishmonger did, and that was a little surprising to me. And I really couldn't figure out why I didn't love it, especially given how much I adored the concept, story, and characters behind the project. It took going back specifically to the lead single Cops and Roggers to figure out what that album was missing was just... fun?
When's the last time you saw someone with a ski mask and a gun? Dead on the inside.
Like, okay, there are fun songs and hooks on the project for sure. Locals, Girls Like Us is a banger, Johnny 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 is an absolutely crazy track, but god, nothing hits with that same energy that Cops and Robbers does. It's not a Fishmonger track by any means, since it's too wild with its genres and influences, but it's a song that abides by a lot of the same principles. Because, yeah, the song just has a real kinetic energy that works. Hyperpop infused with pop punk and even a country-style breakdown towards the back half, Cops and Robbers is a genuinely weird track that only gets more impressive with every listen. Like, how did she get this to work? And how did she get it to work so well?
And I've been MIA for like the past 3 days. My family hates me cause I heard the APB and I made a run for the country.
And, in my opinion, contrasting the sonic energy of the track, the lyrics are actually advocating against violent crimes, saying that stealing without drawing attention to yourself is the way to do it. Which is possibly one of the most unique story elements for a song I might have ever heard. It makes banking seem adrenaline-inducing, and that's such a cool thing to be able to say. Like, he's on the run, he's got motives, he's got justification for his actions. In 4 minutes, Underscores manages to make this a complete character with solid depth, while also maintaining that sense of fun that made it catch fire in the first place. I think Cops and Robbers should have been the ideal that her sophomore album was aspiring to, and while I don't think it all necessarily reaches those heights, this song remains absolutely supreme. Cops and Robbers is a straight banger with boundless creativity and depth, and probably remains her best song of all time. If you see an increase in monetary crimes over the next year, you know exactly who to blame.
Don't look back, let's ride away, let's ride away.
Every good list has a pick without justification. This song isn't here because it changed my life, or its philosophy was groundbreaking, or it influenced the sonic landscape of a genre for years to come. This song is here because it's cute, and I like it.
Do you wanna be in my pocket? Do you wanna be in my pocket?
Yes, I do. I want to be in your pocket, feeble little horse. In fact, there wasn't a song or an album that made me want to live in it more than this one in 2023. There's just something so fun and whimsical about the way this song sounds, and it ended up being comfortably one of my most played songs of the year.
All my kisses and hearts are burning homeward.
The vocals have a real strange innocence about them. It shouldn't really work with these lyrics, which are lovesick to the point of destruction, with the lead singer lamenting the way that her displays of affection are eventually brushed off every time. But that's the thing, she's brushed off every time, yet she still throws herself back in. Do You Want to Be in My Pocket is a pretty classic reference to photographs and lockets that leaves pretty little room for interpretation. And I think that's what makes that innocence work. You can see her grappling with her own feelings in the bridge, being held back by past relationships, online stalking this unnamed individual, and feeling ashamed for doing so. But the gentle naivete of her voice is so easy to enjoy that you just kind of skip past the emotional turmoil and the couple of F-bombs and just coast on good vibes. Look, I barely know what it is myself. All I know is that Pocket just instantly clicked for me. It's so surreal, yet irresistibly catchy, and honestly, I think I knew every word of the song by my second listen. It actually reminds me of a more rock-oriented version of the sounds on KKB's Time and Place, especially with the way the song escalates after the bridge into a manic hit of desperation. That outro really makes the song what it is, I think, transforming Pocket from a cute little moment to a harrowing wall of shoegazy destruction, and the way the chorus changes tune with guttural screaming creates such an interesting moment of contrast. The rest of the song is no slouch in the production department though. It maintains that vibe I talked about earlier, but between the air raid siren on the intro and the bass and overlapping harmonies on that bridge, a bridge that is just as good as that outro, by the way, it takes on an aesthetic that feels wholly unique and personal to this group. Honestly, I'm kind of surprised I managed to write anything at all for this song. This is one of those picks that I can't really justify with words. Either you get exactly what I'm talking about, or you listen to this and you're just not impressed. And I suppose I can't control that, but I also can't control my feelings about this song. Absolutely stunning piece of indie rock, easily one of the best of the year. So, I referenced this a little bit when I left a full review on the full project, but I've never really been able to get into Mitski. There's been individual tracks I loved, but I'd never been able to get into any of her albums entirely. And I'd like to use this platform to say that Mitski finally clicked with me, and I'm sorry for ever doubting her, everyone. Yeah, wow, this one is a lot. I can pretty comfortably say that I'm Your Man is the most depressed a Mitski song has ever made me, and it also overtakes Townie as my favourite song she's ever made. It had just been a long time since something hit in the way this did, and for it to come from someone I'd experienced nothing but disappointment from was surprising. Then again, maybe this was always coming. I've liked Mitski's later releases a lot more than her earlier works, and even though Laurel Hell was kinda mid, it felt like a necessary left turn to get to this point, the true culmination of Mitski's songwriting and production capabilities rolled into one.
You believe me like a god. I destroy you like I am.
I'm Your Man isn't a song that goes crazy on the production, but it's to its benefit, as it lets Mitski wallow in devastating shades of depression. Her lyricism bathes so well in extremes. From the opening lines, we see her place her and her lover onto astronomically different pedestals, one way or another, which sets the tone for how imbalanced and sour the relationship in question feels. And despite the short length and only having 2 verses, it manages to pack so many incredible lyrical quips that almost leave you winded. There's that line about feeling sorry for her in Romantic Future, that line about being worshipped as a god and how that ties into the closing lines, or believing that by fucking up this one opportunity, there's no reason to remain living. And you can make all the moral arguments you want about how that kind of codependency isn't a good thing, but it doesn't stop the song from just being one sledgehammer hit after another. And besides, Mitski just sells this track, fully commits with the low register on her delivery, sounding so utterly defeated and empty that even if the lyrics were utter nonsense, I'd still be feeling affected by them. And I really like the addition of the dogs barking and crickets chirping on the outro, adding to the overall atmosphere of loneliness and despondence. I do find it a little funny that in an era where Mitski's production is the cleanest it's ever been, the return to reverb-heavy acoustics and kitschy sound effects is what ends up hitting me the hardest. This song probably could have made it higher on the list, but ultimately I didn't actually end up spending that much time with it. It's overly simplistic in a way that some of my other favourite sad songs of the year aren't, and I'll talk more about those selections in the second part of this video. I'm Your Man isn't as elaborate as some other songs this year, but it's still an emotional bombshell, and if you're looking for songs to straight up make you want to cry, I'm Your Man is probably the way to go.
So many stories we were told about a safety net, but when I look for it, it's just a hand that's holding mine.
So I actually went clubbing for the first time during Halloween. Didn't love it. Okay, I guess I had fun, but that was more down to the fact that I was hanging out with friends. I'm pretty sure I would have had fun no matter what we were doing. It was still a good time though, I'm glad I did it. And honestly, this song made me way more interested in going to the clubs again.
This is a group therapy.
Okay, I'm fucked up, geeked out, give a fuck what a nigga speak about, we outside.
Listen, I knew I was in for some good shit with this project, I just had no idea what type of good shit. Like, their name is Group Therapy. The full album title is I Was Mature for My Age, But I Was Still a Child. So I could probably be forgiven for assuming the album was going to be super heavy all the way through. And at some points it was, of course. But mostly it just had bangers on top of bangers.
Give me a little something, little nasty. Give me a little something, little nasty. Give me a little something, little nasty. I don't fuck with a little bitch, you nasty.
The most obvious comparison point and minor criticism of the group is how similar they sound to Brockhampton. And like, yeah, that criticism isn't wrong, but it's not like they're just ripping off Brockhampton's ideas either. Where Brockhampton seemed to wear their Kanye-based origins on their sleeve, Group Therapy has a foundation rooted way more in club bangers and dance music. Which is where Nasty comes in, as one of the aforementioned bangers on the album. Cause yeah, it's as simple as that. The song goes hard, the beat absolutely kills, the chorus is insane, and every single verse on this thing is oozing with charisma and or sex appeal.
Wouldn't say that you was fly, but you bird light. Call me Google Maps, I'm trying to help these niggas turn right.
Star of the show for me has to be TJ Online, because holy shit does every single bar he throws at you hit. The Mad Villa line, the line about getting his C's confused, that Google Maps line, dude just has an insane amount of humour and wit about him that works so well. Of course, the other two members comfortably hold their own as well. I'm kinda mad Swim only got half a verse, since his repetitive lines have such a nice quality to them. And Jada Grace feels like she was made for this beat. She's got a voice plucked straight from the classic R&B scene, and it's got a really unique flavour when placed on top of such a bouncing beat. Just such infectious levels of confidence. She opens with this. And you kinda have to sit there and go, yeah, I guess you are. The Brockhampton comparisons do often kind of annoy me because of how much they boil down the appeal of Group Therapy as a collective. But one thing is for sure, both groups have the same level of youthful confidence, the ability to coast on fun and creative beats. And while Brockhampton's legacy will always be peaking in their debut year, you kind of get the impression that Group Therapy's best is yet to come. Nasty is easily one of the most fun tracks of the year, something that everyone should check out at least once.
It's 'cause you're my sunset, fiery red, forever fearless and in your arms.
4chan is a frankly terrifying place full of people that I can't imagine existing in real life, a cesspool of the chronically online. But back in 2016, they produced one gem of a story that I've been following for the last 3 years. And it was so nice to see that gem polished and shine for all to see. For those who don't know, Panchico was originally a group formed in the late 90s by a bunch of teens who happened to be into Nirvana and like Radiohead. They released 2 EPs, Death Metal and Kicking Cars, and then dropped the project to never touch it again. 16 years after the release of those EPs, a 4chan user found the old CD at a store and posted about it, wondering who was behind it. This prompted a years-long search for the original artists who, when eventually found on Facebook and asked whether they were the Panchico, simply responded with, yes. Cut forward to 2023, and against all odds, the band is together again, touring and thriving. And with 2023 came their debut LP, which, again, against all odds for guys who were barely getting back into the groove as a group which never really got going in the first place, it was a really good project, actually. And Gwen Everest is definitely the best reflection of that feel-good story. The bright shoegaze highlights some pretty surprisingly impassioned vocals. It feels like the soundtrack for the movie to a lifetime, and considering these guys have 23 years worth of energy to cram into this one, I'm glad that it feels like it takes every minute of that time into account. Would it have placed so high if not for the band's story? Would it have placed at all on this list? Maybe not. But the context is important for something that feels this triumphant. And honestly, I can't see something that special in this specific way coming from anyone other than Panchico. A brilliant song from a talented group of guys. I cannot wait to see what they get up to in the future.